Someone was watching Colonel Marcus Kane. The man sat in a rental sedan 3 blocks from Nellis Air Force Base, Nevada, engine off, windows tinted dark enough to hide everything except the glow of a tablet screen. On that screen, Marcus Kane's personnel file scrolled past. 58 years old, 36 years of service, F-4 Phantom pilot in Vietnam, A-10 Warthog driver in both Gulf Wars, 973 combat hours, 0 pilots lost under his command. The man's finger paused on one line. Medical discharge request filed 3 weeks ago. Reason, chronic back pain, arthritis, tremor in left hand. Status, pending approval. A second file opened. Financial records, Sarah Kane. Wife, deceased 3 years prior. Cause, ovarian cancer. Medical expenses, $417,000. Insurance covered, $92,000. Remaining debt, $325,000. A third file, Jacob Kane, son, 32 years old, F-16 pilot, currently stationed in Incirlik Air Base, Turkey. Deployment status, active operations, Syria theater. The man closed the files, made a phone call, spoke 4 words. The target is ready. He started the engine and drove away. Behind him, the main gate of Nellis Air Force Base opened to admit a black SUV with government plates. Inside that SUV rode a general who needed an old pilot for one last mission. A mission that would either save 350 lives or destroy everything Marcus Kane had spent 52 years building. The pieces were moving, the trap was set, and Marcus Kane had no idea his life was about to end in the desert sky over Syria, or that it would begin again in the shadows where truth lived and lies died hard. Personal stakes, the weight of everything. Marcus stood in his office at 0430 hours, staring at a photograph he should have put away years ago. Sarah smiled out from the frame. 53 years old in the photo, 2 months before diagnosis. They'd been at Jake's commissioning ceremony. Air Force Academy. Marcus pinning second lieutenant bars on his son's shoulders, while Sarah stood beside them, trying not to cry because Jake was following his father into a profession that killed people with casual regularity. She grabbed Marcus's hand after the ceremony, squeezed hard, whispered in his ear, "Promise me you'll bring him home if he ever needs it. Promise me." Marcus had promised. The way you promise things, you hope you'll never have to deliver on. 6 months later, Sarah was in chemo. The cancer had already spread. Liver, lymph nodes, stage 4, the kind of diagnosis that came with timelines measured in months. The bills started arriving before she died, continued arriving after. Experimental treatments insurance wouldn't cover. Hospital stays that cost more than Marcus made in a year. Specialists who charged $500 to tell him there was nothing more they could do. He'd burned through their savings in 4 months, taken a second mortgage on the house, borrowed against his pension, still came up short by more money than he'd see in 10 years of retirement pay. The VA helped some, not enough, never enough. Sarah died on a Tuesday. Marcus held her hand until it went cold. Jake flew home on emergency leave. They buried her at Arlington with full honors because she'd been a pilot's wife for 30 years, and that counted for something. After the funeral, Jake asked if Marcus needed money. Marcus said no. Lied. Because fathers didn't burden sons with debts they couldn't pay. Now Marcus stood in his office before dawn, looking at Sarah's photo and wondering what she'd say about the phone call he'd received 6 hours ago. The one from Vincent Cross. The one that offered him one last flight. The one that came with a payment structure that would erase every dollar he owed and leave enough for Jake to have something when Marcus was gone. Sarah would have told him it smelled wrong, would have grabbed his face and made him look at her until he saw the trap. But Sarah wasn't here, and $325,000 in medical debt was. Major Sarah Chen knocked twice on the doorframe. She'd been Marcus's executive officer for 2 years at Nellis. Sharp, efficient, completely intolerant of his occasional tendency to brood. "Sir, General Cross's transport is 15 minutes out. You need to be ready." "I am ready." Chen looked at the photograph Marcus was holding, then at the retirement checklist on his desk with exactly 3 boxes left unmarked, then at Marcus's face. "Sir, permission to speak freely?" "When have you ever asked permission? Whatever Cross is offering, it's not worth it. You've served enough. Your son needs a father more than the Air Force needs another pilot. My son needs his father to not be buried under debt from his mother's cancer treatments." Chen's face softened. She knew about the medical bills. Everyone who worked with Marcus knew. It was why they never questioned when he took extra assignments, When he flew missions younger pilots should have flown. When he volunteered for things no 58-year-old should volunteer for. The Air Force takes care of its own, sir. There are programs. Programs that take 3 years to process and might pay 30 cents on the dollar if you're lucky. I don't have 3 years, Sarah. I have 3 weeks until mandatory retirement and a debt I can't pay. Chen opened her mouth to argue, closed it, nodded once. Then come back alive. Jake's already lost his mother. Don't make him bury his father, too. She left. Marcus looked at the photograph one more time, put it face down in his desk drawer. Some goodbyes were easier when you didn't have to look. The call. The secure video link activated at 0500 hours. Vincent Cross's face filled the screen. 70 years old, Arsimone. 4 stars on his shoulders. 52 years since Marcus had pulled him from a burning F-4 Phantom over Hanoi. Cross looked tired, more than tired, haunted. Marcus, I need you for one last mission. You said that on the phone. I said yes. Now tell me what I'm really flying into. 350 Marines pinned in Euphrates Valley. Every available pilot is deployed. I need someone with experience in the Warthog. Someone who can use the new Sentinel targeting system. Marcus leaned back. Sentinel, the AI-assisted targeting system that had killed 12 people in Yemen 18 months ago. The system that was supposed to be buried. I thought Sentinel was shut down after Yemen. It was. We're bringing it back. Limited use. Trained operators only. You're qualified. I've never touched Sentinel. You will be. 3-day crash course at Creech Air Force Base. Then you deploy to Incirlik. Mission profile is reconnaissance. Visual confirmation. You don't fire unless specifically authorized. And the payment? Cross's face tightened. He knew Marcus's situation. Probably knew it better than Marcus did. Probably had people who'd compiled every bill, every debt, every late notice. Full hazard pay, combat zone bonus, and a consultant fee for Sentinel operation. Total package is $400,000. Paid on mission completion. That's triple standard rate for a recon flight. It's a complicated mission. Complicated how? Cross looked away from the camera. When he looked back, his eyes held something Marcus had seen before. In Vietnam, in the seconds before Cross's Phantom had started spinning toward jungle that would have killed him. Fear. There are elements in play you won't be briefed on. Intelligence assets, classified movements. You'll see things that don't make sense. Your job is to trust the mission profile and follow orders. Marcus felt ice settle in his gut. Vince, what aren't you telling me? Everything I can't tell you, which is most of it. The question is whether you trust me anyway. 52 years. That's how long they'd known each other. 52 years since Marcus had used his own aircraft to cushion Cross's fall. 52 years of friendship built on that one moment of trust. But trust had an expiration date, and Marcus was looking at a man who wouldn't meet his eyes. Is Jake involved in this operation? Cross hesitated. That 1-second pause that confirmed everything. Need to know basis, Marcus. Your son is deployed in theater. That's all I can say. Then I need to know. If my son is flying anywhere near this mission, I need full disclosure. You'll have what you need when you need it. Right now, what you need is to get to Creech. Training starts in 8 hours. The video link terminated. Cross's face disappeared. Marcus sat alone in his office, staring at a blank screen. His phone buzzed. Text message from an unknown number. Don't trust Cross. Shadow Actual is watching. You'll understand soon. Marcus deleted the message. Probably spam, probably nothing. But his hands were shaking. Conspiracy tease, the man with the card. Creech Air Force Base sat in the Nevada desert 45 miles from Las Vegas. Home to drone operations. Remote piloting. Killing people from 7,000 miles away while drinking coffee in an air-conditioned trailer. Marcus hated it. The Sentinel training facility occupied a classified wing protected by 3 separate security checkpoints. Marcus cleared them all and found himself in a simulator room that looked more like a video game arcade than a military installation. Dr. Robert Hayes waited inside, 55 years old, civilian contractor, the kind of engineer who spoke in acronyms and forgot that normal people needed translations. Colonel Kane, welcome to Sentinel. Let me show you what $4 billion of research and development looks like. $4 billion. That was 20 times what Marcus's medical debt totaled. Enough to save 12,000 families like his. Instead, it had been poured into a system that killed 12 people in Yemen. Show me. Hayes brought up a simulation, combat scenario. Marcus in an A-10 over hostile territory, targets below. Friendlies mixed with enemies. Standard targeting systems show you thermal signatures. Sentinel shows you intention. It analyzes movement patterns, communication intercepts, weapon signatures, even financial transactions. It builds a probability model of hostile intent. So it guesses. It analyzes with 87% accuracy in field tests. What about the other 13%? What about Yemen? Hayes's face closed down. Yemen was operator error. The pilot ignored system warnings, engaged targets the system flagged as uncertain. That's not what the official report said. The official report blamed the system. Hayes looked around the room, made sure they were alone, leaned close. Colonel, do you know what Shadow Actual is? Marcus remembered the text message, the feeling that someone was watching. No. Good. Keep it that way, and be careful who you trust. Sentinel didn't fail in Yemen, but someone needed people to think it did. Hayes walked away before Marcus could ask what the hell that meant. The training took 3 days. Marcus learned to interface with Sentinel, learned to read its probability matrices, learned to trust a computer to tell him who deserved to die. On the 3rd night, someone knocked on his quarters at 0200 hours. Marcus opened the door to find Tech Sergeant Owen Hayes, no relation to Dr. Hayes, 42 years old, weathered face, eyes that had seen things. The sergeant held out a metal card, thin, sharp, made from something that looked like steel but weighed wrong. One side showed an emblem, a reaper's blade wrapped around targeting crosshairs. The other side held 3 words. Shadow Actual Truth Prevails. Tech Sergeant Owen Hayes, sir. I'm your crew chief when you get to Incirlik. But I'm also something else, something you need to know about before you fly this mission. What are you? Insurance. The kind that makes sure pilots like you don't get sacrificed for political convenience. This card carries clearances you don't know you have yet. Access to systems, data, people. When you need it, you'll understand. Marcus took the card. It was warm, like it had been in someone's hand for a long time. What's Shadow Actual? The unit that exists when official channels fail. We track corruption, expose it, stop it before it kills people who trust the chain of command. And Cross? Owen's face hardened. We've been watching him for 2 years. Financial irregularities, equipment losses, intelligence leaks. Nothing we could prove. Until now. Until you. You're using me as bait. We're giving you a chance to do what's right when everything tells you to do what's ordered. There's a difference. Owen left. Marcus stood in his doorway holding a metal card that shouldn't exist, representing a unit that officially wasn't there, promising protection from threats he didn't understand. He thought about calling Jake, warning him, telling him to stay away from whatever mission Cross was planning. But Jake's phone went to voicemail, and Marcus's flight to Turkey left in 4 hours. Some conversations happened too late. Some warnings came after the trap had already closed. Tension build, Incirlik. The Combined Air Operations Center at Incirlik Air Base smelled like stale coffee and printer toner, and the particular anxiety that came with managing combat operations in real time. 43 officers sat at workstations monitoring feeds from satellites, drones, aircraft, ground units. Every screen showed a different piece of the war. Marcus walked in at 0600 hours and every head turned. They knew him by reputation. Ironside, the pilot who never lost a wingman, who'd flown 973 combat hours without a single friendly fire incident. What they didn't know was that Marcus was walking into a mission he didn't trust with a commander who wouldn't meet his eyes in a debt that made him desperate enough to take it anyway. Lieutenant Colonel Rachel Brennan stood near the central tactical display. 45 years old, different from Major Chen back at Nellis. More political. The kind of officer who cared more about career advancement than mission success. Ironside, surprised to see you, thought you were retired. So did I. General Cross sends his regards. Says you're flying Sentinel reconnaissance. That's the mission profile. Brennan smiled. It didn't reach her eyes. Good luck. We've had 17 aircraft over that valley in the last 6 hours. Not one could identify where the fire's coming from. Marines are dying and we're flying blind. Maybe your magic computer can see what human pilots can't. She walked away. Marcus watched her go, felt the weight of 43 officers' expectations settle on his shoulders. A hand touched his elbow. Tech Sergeant Owen Hayes, the man from Creech, the man with the Shadow Actual card. Sir, your bird's ready, but we need to talk, privately. They walked to the maintenance hangar, empty at this hour, just rows of aircraft in various states of repair. Owen led Marcus to the far corner, where a single A-10 Warthog sat under work lights. This is yours. I've been your crew chief for the last 72 hours. Want to know what I found? Tell me. Your hydraulic lines have been weakened, not enough to fail during pre-flight, but enough to fail under combat stress, especially if you're running Sentinel at full power. Marcus felt his blood go cold. Someone sabotaged my aircraft. Someone wants you to crash if you activate Sentinel's classified capabilities. The ones that Cross told you were shut down, the ones that actually work. Why? Because those capabilities don't just target enemies. They track corruption, financial crimes, intelligence leaks. Cross has been selling operational intelligence to private military contractors for 3 years. Sentinel can prove it if you activate it, if you survive long enough to get the data back. How do I know you're not the one lying? Owen handed Marcus a tablet, showed him maintenance logs, showed him the sabotage, showed him timestamps that proved someone with command-level access had authorized the work. Cross's authorization code was all over the logs. Your aircraft was sabotaged by order of your commanding officer. The mission you're flying is designed to get you killed if you do your job right. And your son is flying in the same operational area with no idea his father is being set up. Where's Jake? F-16 Squadron. Top cover for the Marines. He'll be in the air when you are. Marcus looked at the A-10, at the aircraft that was supposed to bring him home. That had been turned into a death trap by a man he'd saved over Hanoi 52 years ago. Can you fix it? I can make it last longer. But if you go full power on Sentinel, your aircraft will fail. It's physics. The system draws more power than the electrical system can handle. Something will burn out. How long? Maybe 20 minutes? Maybe 10? Depends on how hard you push it. And if I don't activate Sentinel, 350 Marines die. Cross gets away with everything. And you spend the rest of your life knowing you had a chance to stop it. Marcus ran his hand along the A-10's fuselage, felt the cold metal, thought about Jake, about Sarah, about the debt that had brought him here and the trap that was waiting. Fix what you can, I'll handle the rest. Sir, there's one more thing. Your son doesn't know you're here. Cross kept you out of the briefing, kept your call sign off the operational roster. Jake thinks you're still in Nevada processing retirement paperwork. Why? Because if Jake knew his father was flying into a sabotaged aircraft, he'd abort his mission to protect you. Cross is counting on Jake not knowing until it's too late. Marcus closed his eyes, breathed, opened them again. Then I'll tell him myself, when the time's right. Owen nodded once, walked away. Left Marcus alone with an aircraft that was designed to kill him and a mission that made less sense with every hour. Marcus pulled out his phone, tried Jake's number, still voicemail. He left a message. Son, it's Dad. I'm at Incirlik. I know you are too. I know you're flying today. So am I. We need to talk before wheels up. Call me when you get this. Love you. He ended the call, looked at the A-10 one more time. Somewhere in this base, Jake was sleeping, or prepping his F-16, or sitting in a briefing room learning about the mission that would put him in the same sky as his father. And Cross was watching, waiting, counting on Marcus to either die trying or live knowing he'd let 350 Marines die instead. Some choices destroyed you either way. Marcus walked towards the operations center, toward the briefing, toward the mission that would either save lives or end his. Behind him, Owen Hayes watched from the shadows, held a secure phone, made a call. He knows. He's going anyway. A woman's voice responded. Calm, cold, carrying authority Marcus would only learn about later. Good. Make sure his aircraft holds together long enough. We need the data Sentinel collects. We need proof. And if he dies getting it, then he dies. But 350 Marines don't. That's the calculus. Owen ended the call, looked at the A-10, wondered if Marcus Kane would live long enough to learn what Shadow Actual really was, wondered if it mattered. Father and son, the twist that changes everything. The briefing started at 06:30 hours. 12 pilots crammed into a room designed for 8. Marcus stood in back. Jake sat front row. Neither knew the other was there until Cross's face appeared on screen. Mission brief. 350 Marines, 2nd Battalion, 5th Regiment, pinned in Euphrates Valley. Heavy contact from multiple directions. Air support limited. Weather clear. Threat level high. Cross went through the operational plan. F-16s would maintain high cover. A-10 would run reconnaissance with the new Sentinel system. Ground forces would hold until extraction assets arrived. Standard stuff. Except nothing about this felt standard. Cross's eyes swept the room, stopped on Marcus for half a second, long enough to communicate, "Don't screw this up." Then Cross's gaze moved to the front row, to Jake. and something passed over Cross's face. Something that looked like guilt. Jake raised his hand. Sir, the A-10 pilot? Who's flying that mission? Cross hesitated. The pause lasted 1 second too long. That's need to know, Lieutenant. Sir, with respect, if I'm flying top cover, I need to know who I'm covering. Colonel Kane will be operating the Sentinel platform. He's highly experienced. That's all you need to know. Jake's head snapped back. His hand went to his phone, checked messages, found the voicemail from his father. The one that said, I'm at Incirlik. I know you are too. We need to talk. Jake stood up fast enough his chair scraped. Sir, that's my father. You're sending my father into combat with untested technology and you didn't tell me. The room went silent. Every pilot turned to look at Jake, then at Marcus in the back. Father and son locked eyes across 30 feet of space. Jake's face showed betrayal. Marcus's showed resignation. Cross's voice cut through. Lieutenant Kane, sit down. Your personal relationships don't affect operational planning. The hell they don't. If my father's aircraft fails, I'm the closest asset. I have a right to know. You have a right to follow orders. Sit down. Jake didn't sit. He looked at Marcus. You weren't going to tell me. It wasn't a question. It was an accusation, and it was true. Marcus stepped forward. Son, I tried to call you. You didn't answer. I left a message. When? Last night? This morning? When exactly were you planning to mention you'd come out of retirement to fly a sabotaged aircraft into a combat zone? The word sabotaged hit the room like a grenade. Officers started whispering. Rachel Brennan stood up from her console. What does he mean, sabotaged? Owen Hayes materialized from somewhere in back, held up a tablet, showed hydraulic system diagnostics, showed the weakened lines, showed the authorization codes. Lieutenant Kane is correct. Colonel Kane's aircraft has been compromised. Maintenance logs show unauthorized modifications to critical flight systems. The modifications were authorized by command-level access codes. Brennan took the tablet. Her face went pale as she read. She looked at Cross on the screen. Sir, is this true? Did you authorize modifications to an aircraft you knew would be operating Sentinel under combat stress? Cross's face had gone blank, the mask of command slipping to reveal something underneath, something desperate. Those modifications were necessary to integrate Sentinel's power requirements with the A-10's electrical systems. They're within acceptable parameters. Acceptable parameters that guarantee system failure if the pilot activates full capabilities. Owen's voice was flat, cold, factual. You designed this mission to kill Colonel Kane if he does his job correctly. That's a serious accusation, Sergeant. It's also true, and every person in this room knows it. Jake was moving before anyone could stop him. Across the briefing room, past the other pilots, straight to Marcus. You're not flying this mission. Marcus met his son's eyes. Yes, I am. Dad, they sabotaged your aircraft. You'll die. Maybe, or maybe I'll bring 350 Marines home. Either way, it's my choice. Jake's hands balled into fists. His voice dropped to something raw and broken. Mom died 3 years ago. I'm not losing you too. I won't. I can't. Marcus put his hand on Jake's shoulder, felt his son shaking. Your mother made me promise to always do what's right, even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. This is what's right. Letting yourself be murdered by a corrupt general is what's right. Saving 350 people who trust us to bring them home is what's right. The rest is just details. Jake pulled away, looked at Cross on the screen. When he spoke, his voice carried something Marcus had never heard before. Pure rage. General, I'm formally requesting reassignment. I refuse to participate in any operation where my father is being used as expendable bait. Request denied. You're a commissioned officer, Lieutenant. You follow orders. Then I'm refusing orders. Court-martial me. I don't care. I'm not watching my father die. Cross's face hardened. Lieutenant Kane, you are confined to quarters pending disciplinary review. Security, escort him out. 2 MPs moved toward Jake. Marcus stepped between them. Belay that. General, my son flies this mission. He's the best F-16 pilot in this squadron. Those Marines need him, and I need to know someone's watching my back. Cross stared at Marcus through the screen. 52 years of history passed between them. Hanoi, the save, the decades of friendship, all of it reduced to this moment. You're making a mistake, Marcus. I've made lots of mistakes. This isn't one of them. The screen went dark. Cross was gone. The briefing room erupted into chaos. Officers arguing, pilots demanding answers. Rachel Brennan trying to restore order. Marcus grabbed Jake's arm, pulled him into the hallway, found an empty office, shut the door. Listen to me. You fly your mission. You stay high. You don't do anything stupid. Dad, your aircraft is rigged to fail. I know. Owen's buying me time. Maybe enough, maybe not. But those Marines don't have time. They're dying right now. Every minute we delay is another casualty. So you're just going to sacrifice yourself? I'm going to do my job. Same as I've always done. Same as you're going to do. Jake's eyes were wet. He was trying not to cry. Trying to be the officer instead of the son. I can't lose you. Not like this. Marcus pulled Jake into a hug, held him tight, felt his son's heart beating against his chest. You're not losing me. I'm too stubborn to die. Ask your mother. She'll tell you. Mom's dead. Then ask me when this is over. I'll tell you myself. They separated. Marcus held Jake's face in his hands the way Sarah used to. The way that made you see yourself through someone else's eyes. Your mother loved you more than anything in this world. More than me. More than life. And she'd be so damn proud of the man you've become. You fly safe. You trust your training. And you remember, brothers don't leave brothers. Jake nodded. Couldn't speak, just nodded. Marcus let go. Walked toward the door, stopped, looked back. Jake, thank you for being my son. It's been the honor of my life. Then he was gone, walking toward the flight line, toward the aircraft that was designed to kill him, toward the mission that would either save 350 lives or add one more name to the wall of the dead. Behind him, Jake stood alone in an empty office, pulled out his phone, called a number he'd been given months ago by someone who said, if you ever need help outside official channels, use this. The phone rang once. A woman answered. Shadow Actual. My name is Lieutenant Jake Kane. My father is Colonel Marcus Kane. He's flying a sabotaged aircraft into combat in 30 minutes. I need you to stop it. We can't stop it, but we can make sure he survives it, and we can make sure the people who sabotaged him pay for it. Who are you? The insurance policy your father doesn't know he has. Get to your aircraft, Lieutenant. Fly your mission. We'll handle the rest. The line went dead. Jake stood holding his phone. Then he ran toward the flight line, toward his F-16, toward the mission that would put him in the sky with his father one last time. Action peak, when everything breaks. The world looked different from 22,000 feet. Cleaner, simpler. The ugliness of war reduced to colored dots on a screen. Red for Marines, orange for enemies, blue for friendlies. Except there were no blue dots, just red surrounded by orange and a lot of empty space. Marcus's hands were steady on the stick. 58 years old, but the muscle memory never faded. The A-10 responded like an extension of his body. Ugly aircraft, brutal, but it flew true. Sentinel painted the tactical picture in real time. 350 Marines clustered in defensive positions, taking fire from 3 directions, ammunition running low, casualties mounting. Extract was 12 minutes out. They needed those 12 minutes. Marcus keyed his mic. CAOS, Hog 41. I'm observing heavy contact on Marine positions. Request permission to engage. Negative, Hog 41. Maintain reconnaissance posture. Do not engage without authorization. Copy. But Marcus's eyes tracked movement on the Sentinel display. 18 unknowns approaching from northwest. Armed. Moving in tactical formation. Not on any operational map. Not in any briefing. CAO, Hog 41. I have 18 unknown contacts northwest of Marine positions. They're not showing on your board. There was a pause, then Cross's voice. Tight, controlled, dangerous. Those contacts are classified. Hog 41. Coalition Special Operations. Do not track them. Do not engage them. Maintain your patrol pattern. Marcus zoomed Sentinel's optical feed, saw the unknowns, saw their weapons. QBZ-95 assault rifles. Chinese, not coalition, not American, not anyone who should be there. Sir, Sentinel identifies those weapons as Chinese manufacture. That's not coalition equipment. The system is malfunctioning, Kane. Those are friendlies. Stand down. Marcus watched the 18 unknowns move closer to the Marines. Watch them take up positions. Watch them prepare to open fire on Americans who had no idea they were there. Staff Sergeant Coleman's voice crackled through. Desperate. Scared. Any air asset, this is Reaper 12. We're taking heavy casualties. We need close air support now. Marcus's thumb hovered over the button. The one Owen had shown him. The one that activated Sentinel's full capabilities. The ones that would prove Cross was lying. The ones that would burn out his aircraft's electrical systems and probably kill him. Above, Jake's voice came through on the family frequency. The one they'd used for years, the one that wasn't official, that couldn't be monitored. Dad, don't do it. Don't activate that system. We'll find another way. Marcus looked at his screen, saw 3 Marines go down, saw their thermal signatures fade to black, saw Coleman trying to pull wounded to cover while taking fire from 3 directions. There is no other way, son. You know that. You'll die. Maybe. But they'll live. Marcus pressed the button. Sentinel exploded across every screen, not just in Marcus's cockpit, every screen in the CAOC, every terminal, every display. Data flooding through in torrents, financial transactions, bank transfers, equipment manifests, communications intercepts. All of it traced back to one name, Vincent Cross. The system didn't just show enemy positions. It showed the corruption network that had put them there. Showed Cross selling operational intelligence to private military contractors. Showed the contractors hiring mercenaries. Showed the mercenaries moving into position to kill Marines whose positions Cross had sold. At the CAOC, Rachel Brennan stood up from her console. Her face had gone white. My God, he's been selling them out. Cross has been selling out our people. Owen Hayes was already moving, already calling security, already making sure Cross couldn't run. Major Rachel Chen's voice came through the radio. She'd been patched in from command authority higher than Cross. All units, this is Sentinel Command. General Cross is relieved of command. Colonel Kane, you are authorized to engage all hostile contacts. Repeat, you are authorized to engage. Marcus was already diving, already pulling the trigger, already committing to the one thing he knew how to do: bring people home. The GAU-8 Avenger roared to life, 70 rounds per second, each round the size of a beer bottle, each round moving faster than sound, each round carrying enough energy to punch through tank armor. The first burst walked across the 18 unknowns. They never had time to react, never had time to return fire. They just ceased to exist. Marcus pulled up, banked, came around for another pass. His aircraft was already shaking. Electrical systems flickering. Sentinel was burning through power faster than the generators could supply. Owen had been right. The sabotage was working. The aircraft was dying. Marcus didn't care. He had ammunition. He had targets. He had Marines who needed him. Second pass, 5 more targets eliminated. The gun never missed, never hesitated, just delivered violence with mechanical precision. Jake's F-16 dove from altitude, not to engage, to protect, to fly cover for his father. Brothers don't leave brothers. Dad, your systems are failing. You need to RTB. Negative. Still have ordnance. Still have targets. Third pass, Marcus's vision was graying at the edges. G-forces, blood pressure, age, all of it catching up. But his hand stayed steady. The gun stayed on target. The enemies kept dying. At the CAOC, Owen watched Marcus's biometrics, watched his heart rate climb, watched his oxygen saturation drop, watched a 58-year-old man push his body past limits that would have killed someone younger. He's not gonna make it. Rachel Chen looked at the screen, at the Marines no longer taking fire, at the casualties being treated, at the extract birds inbound. He doesn't need to make it. He just needs to last 6 more minutes. Marcus completed his 4th pass. Ammunition exhausted, gun empty, targets eliminated, Marines safe. His electrical systems failed. Not flickered. Failed. Every screen went dark. Every control went dead. The A-10 became a 50,000-pound glider with the aerodynamic properties of a brick. Hog 41 declaring emergency. Total electrical failure. Hydraulics gone. I'm going down. Jake's voice, raw, desperate. Dad, eject. Eject now. Negative. Seat's dead. No hydraulics. I'm riding her in. Marcus looked for somewhere to crash that wouldn't kill Marines. Found an open stretch of desert 3 miles from the valley. Not long enough. Covered with rocks. But better than the alternative. He aimed for it, felt the aircraft falling, felt control slipping away. Thought about Sarah, about Jake, about 36 years of flying, about all the choices that led here. The ground rushed up. Emotional cliffhanger, the cost of everything. The impact drove Marcus's teeth through his lip. Blood filled his mouth. His helmet cracked against the canopy frame. His left arm snapped. Radius, ulna, both bones, he heard them break, felt them grind. The pain was distant, abstract. The A-10 hit nose first, dug in, flipped. The world inverted, metal screamed, systems exploded. The aircraft tumbled end over end across desert floor, leaving pieces of itself in a trail of destruction. Marcus rode it out strapped in his seat. Couldn't do anything else. Couldn't eject. Couldn't control it. Could only hold on and hope physics was merciful. The aircraft stopped upside down, fuel leaking, sparks showering, Marcus hanging in his harness bleeding from a dozen places. But breathing, still breathing. He found the manual canopy release. Right hand, left arm was useless. Pulled the lever. The canopy cracked open. He thumbed his harness release. Fell 6 feet onto the canopy, crawled out through the gap. The sun was brutal. The air was furnace hot. His aircraft was burning 100 yards away. He'd been thrown clear in the final roll. Marcus tried to stand. His left ankle gave out. Broken or sprained. Didn't matter. He crawled. Got behind a rock. Drew his sidearm, M18 pistol, 17 rounds, waited. Above, Jake's F-16 circled. His voice filled Marcus's helmet. Dad, respond, please respond. Marcus keyed his mic, tasted blood. I'm here, son, I'm okay. You're not okay. You just crashed. Stay there, I'm calling for rescue. No, you complete your mission. Those Marines still need extract. Dad, that's an order, Lieutenant. You fly your mission. I'll be fine. Jake's F-16 circled one more time, then climbed, headed back to the valley, following orders, being a professional, being his father's son. Marcus sat behind the rock, felt his body inventory its damage. Broken arm, broken ankle, concussion, multiple lacerations, possibly internal bleeding, 58 years old and broken in a Syrian desert, but alive. And 346 Marines were alive too. 4 had died before Marcus arrived. Coleman had reported their names: Corporal David Reed, Private Joel Manning, Lance Corporal Miguel Torres, Private First Class Andrew Kim, all dead before Marcus could save them. Marcus thought about those 4, about their families, about the notifications being written right now. We regret to inform you, your son, your husband, your father killed in action. 4 too many, but 346 saved. 346 families spared that notification. 346 lives continuing because one old pilot had broken every rule. Worth it, had to be. Marcus heard rotors. CH-53 Super Stallion, coming low and fast. Marines. He recognized the profile. The aircraft settled into a hover, lowered its ramp, men ran out. Coleman led them. Young, tough, covered in dust and blood. He saw Marcus and his face cracked into something between a smile and tears. Sir, we got you, you're safe. Marcus tried to stand. Couldn't. Coleman and 3 other Marines lifted him, carried him to the helicopter. The ones who didn't make it. Tell me about them. Coleman's face tightened. Reed was pulling wounded to cover when he got hit. Manning was calling in coordinates for fire support. Torres was on the gun. Kim was trying to reach Reed when a second RPG hit. All heroes. All dead, sir, but you saved the rest of us. 346 came home because of you. Not enough. Never enough. They loaded Marcus on a stretcher, started an IV. Corpsman cut off his flight suit to assess damage. Marcus watched the valley recede through the open ramp, watched the smoke from his burning aircraft, watched the sky that had been his home for 36 years. All of it ending, all of it leading to this moment. Jake's F-16 appeared beside the helicopter, flying escort, staying close, protecting his father even when his father couldn't protect himself. Marcus keyed the family frequency. Jake, thank you. For what? For being exactly who your mother raised you to be. Jake's voice broke. Just don't die, old man. We still have that fishing trip you promised. Count on it. The morphine hit Marcus's bloodstream. The pain receded to something distant. His vision started to tunnel, but before consciousness left completely, he heard Sarah's voice. Not real. Memory, but clear as if she was sitting beside him. You did good, Marcus. You brought them home. Not all of them. No, not all, but enough. It's always enough when you do your best. The world went dark, warm, peaceful. In that darkness, Marcus dreamed. Not nightmares, memories. Hanoi, 1972. A 22-year-old lieutenant flying an F-4 Phantom through flak that turned the sky into a death lottery. His wingman was Vincent Cross, 20 years old, first combat tour, flying like he was immortal because that's how 20-year-olds flew. Then the missile hit. Cross's Phantom started spinning, smoke pouring from the engine. The kid's voice on the radio, high and scared. I'm hit, I can't control it. Marcus had done something crazy. something that violated every rule in the book. He'd flown alongside the spinning aircraft, matched its descent, used his own phantom to physically catch Cross's wing, to stabilize it, to give Cross 3 seconds to punch out before both aircraft went into the jungle. Cross had ejected at 500 feet. Marcus had pulled up at 300. Both of them should have died. Neither did. That was the beginning of 52 years of friendship, of trust, of believing that the man you'd saved over Hanoi would never betray you. Marcus had been wrong about that, but he hadn't been wrong about the principle. Brothers don't leave brothers. That was the code, the promise, the weight he'd carried for 5 decades and would carry until the day he couldn't carry anymore. He'd kept that promise today. 346 Marines would see their families again because he'd remembered what mattered. 4 wouldn't, and he'd carry their names too. Reed, Manning, Torres, Kim. 4 more ghosts. 4 more debts he could never repay. The morphine pulled him deeper into darkness. The helicopter's rotors faded to a distant rhythm. Jake's voice became a whisper. "Hold on, Dad! Hold on!" Marcus held on. Not because he was strong, not because he was brave, but because he'd made promises. To Sarah, to Jake, to Coleman, to the 400 Marines who trusted him to bring them home. He'd kept most of those promises. Now he just had to stay alive long enough to face the consequences. The darkness deepened. The world dissolved. Marcus Kane fell into unconsciousness, 58 years old and broken in ways that wouldn't heal. But alive. And 346 Marines were alive too. In the end, that was all that mattered. Not the career, not the court-martial, not the pain that would follow him for whatever years remained. Just the lives, the families, the children who would grow up with fathers because one old pilot had broken every rule to bring them home. The cost was high. His body, his career, his freedom, possibly his life. But some costs were worth paying. Some missions mattered more than anything else. And brothers don't leave brothers, even when it costs everything, especially when it costs everything. Landstuhl Medical Center, Germany. Pain was the first thing Marcus felt when consciousness returned. Not abstract pain, not distant pain, the kind of pain that had geography. His left arm screamed where the bones had snapped. His ankle throbbed with every heartbeat. His ribs felt like someone had used them for batting practice. And somewhere behind his eyes, a headache pulsed with the rhythm of a war drum. But pain meant alive. Pain meant still breathing. Pain was better than the alternative. Marcus opened his eyes. White ceiling, medical equipment, the smell of antiseptic and floor cleaner. Landstuhl Regional Medical Center, the place where wounded warriors from the Middle East got pieced back together before going home. Or didn't go home, depending on how bad the damage was. A nurse noticed him stirring. Young, Army, probably 25. She smiled like she'd been trained to smile at broken men who woke up wondering if they still had all their pieces. "Welcome back, Colonel. You've been out for 18 hours. How's your pain level?" Marcus tried to speak. His throat was raw, dry. He croaked something that might have been a number between 7 and 10. "I'll get you something for that. Don't try to move. You've got a lot of hardware holding you together right now." She left. Marcus turned his head slowly, saw his left arm in a cast from wrist to shoulder, saw his left leg elevated in a brace, saw monitors tracking vitals he couldn't decipher, saw a chart at the foot of his bed listing injuries he'd accumulated in the crash. Compound fracture left radius and ulna, fractured left fibula, 3 cracked ribs, grade 2 concussion, multiple lacerations requiring 47 sutures, mild internal bleeding controlled during surgery, contusions to liver and kidney, expected recovery time, 4 to 6 months. Marcus did the math. 4 to 6 months put him past mandatory retirement age, way past, by the moments, which meant his flying career was over, whether the Air Force court-martialed him or not. 58 years old and done. The door opened again. Not the nurse, Jake. His son looked like he'd aged 10 years in 18 hours. Eyes red, face drawn, still in flight suit. He must have flown straight here after the mission. Must not have slept. Must not have eaten. Must have sat in waiting rooms watching clocks and praying to a God he wasn't sure he believed in. Jake saw Marcus awake and something broke in his face. Not tears, not yet, but close. "Dad, Jesus Christ, Dad." Jake crossed the room in 3 steps, pulled a chair to the bedside, sat down hard, put his head in his hands. His shoulders shook once, twice. Then he got control of himself, looked up with wet eyes. Marcus reached out with his right hand, the one that still worked, touched Jake's shoulder. I'm okay, son. Jake's laugh was bitter, raw. You're not okay. You broke half the bones in your body. The doctor said if you were 10 years younger, you might have walked away. But at 58, the impact does more damage. Takes longer to heal. Might not heal right. Your left arm might never have full strength again. Your ankle might always hurt when it rains. Then I'll heal wrong. Won't be the first time. This isn't a joke, Dad. You almost died. I watched your aircraft go down. I saw the fireball. I thought you were dead. For 3 hours, I thought you were dead because they couldn't find you in the wreckage, and I thought you'd been incinerated and there would be nothing left to bury. But I didn't die, and 346 Marines did not die either. That's what matters. Jake stood up, paced, anger replacing grief. Good. Marcus could handle anger better than tears. You want to know what happened after you crashed? You want to know what they're saying in the Sea? Tell me. Cross is in custody, Fort Leavenworth. Awaiting trial for treason, conspiracy, selling classified intelligence to foreign contractors. They found 3 years of evidence, bank transfers to offshore accounts, equipment sales to private military companies, operational intel that got people killed. He made $11 million selling out American forces. Marcus felt something cold settle in his chest. 11 million. That was how much American lives were worth to his oldest friend, the kid he'd saved over Hanoi, the brother he'd trusted for 52 years, the man who'd stood at Sarah's funeral and promised to look after Marcus if he ever needed anything. $11 million. That was the price of their friendship. And me? What are they saying about me? You violated direct orders, activated a banned weapon system, engaged targets without authorization, destroyed a $40 million aircraft. They're talking about court-martial. Dishonorable discharge, maybe prison, 5 to 10 years at Leavenworth depending on how the tribunal feels. Marcus closed his eyes. Expected. All of it expected. You didn't break that many rules without consequences. That was the deal. Do what's right, accept what comes. Hope history judges you better than your commanding officers. How long until the tribunal? 3 weeks. They wanted to do it sooner, but the doctors said you need time to stabilize. So 3 weeks, then you face Admiral Hawthorne, Vice Admiral Cortez, and Lieutenant General Shaw. All 3-star or above, all with reputations for being hard but fair. Who's on my side? Me, Owen Hayes, Staff Sergeant Coleman, every Marine and Reaper Company, the families of the 346 who came home. That's a lot of voices, Dad. Maybe enough. Maybe. Or maybe the system grinds me up the way it grinds up everyone who steps out of line. Jake sat back down, leaned forward, voice dropping to something raw and desperate. I'm not going to let that happen. I'll testify. I'll bring every Marine who can walk. I'll make them see that you saved lives, that the rules were wrong, that Cross was the criminal, not you. Marcus grabbed Jake's hand with his good one, squeezed hard. You won't be alone. You have your squadron, your career, and you have something more important. You have the knowledge that your father did what was right when everything told him to do what was ordered. That matters, Jake. When you're my age and you look back at your life, what matters is whether you did what was right. The door opened. A woman in her early 60s entered, gray hair cut short, civilian clothes but military bearing. She moved like someone who'd spent decades in uniform, even if she wasn't wearing one now. Her eyes swept the room once. Evaluated Jake, evaluated Marcus, made decisions neither of them could read. Colonel Kane, I'm General Iris Thorne. Retired, sort of. We need to talk. Jake stood up fast, protective. Who are you? How did you get clearance to be here? I have clearance everywhere, Lieutenant, including places you don't know exist, including places that officially don't exist at all. Please step outside. I'm not leaving my father alone with someone I don't know. Thorne smiled. It didn't reach her eyes. You already know me. You called Shadow Actual 2 days ago. You spoke to one of my officers. She told you we'd make sure your father survived. We kept that promise. Now I need to speak with him privately. You can listen at the door if it makes you feel better. Jake looked at Marcus. Marcus nodded. It's okay, son. Give us 5 minutes. Jake left reluctantly, closed the door behind him. Thorne pulled the chair close to Marcus's bed, sat down, looked at him with eyes that had evaluated 1,000 soldiers and found most of them wanting. You made quite a mess, Colonel. I saved 346 lives. You also exposed an operation we'd been running for 2 years. Cross was our target. We were building a case. Slow and careful. No loose ends, no mistakes. You activated Sentinel and burned the entire investigation in 20 minutes. You're welcome. Thorne almost smiled. Almost. The data Sentinel collected is admissible. Cross's lawyers will try to suppress it, but they'll fail. Financial crimes, intelligence leaks, equipment sales, all of it documented with timestamps and encryption keys. You handed us everything we needed to convict him. Years of work we couldn't do, you did in one flight. So the tribunal will clear me. No, the tribunal will probably convict you because you still broke every rule in the book. Just because the rules were protecting corruption doesn't mean you're allowed to break them without consequences. That's not how the system works. Then why are you here? Because Shadow Actual is expanding. We've dismantled Cross's network. 47 officers arrested across 12 bases, but that's one network. There are 6 more that we know of. Defense contractors, foreign intelligence services, private military companies. All of them using American forces as pawns in games that have nothing to do with national security. And you want me to hunt them? I want you to lead the hunters. Shadow Actual West, Pacific Operations. China is running intelligence operations inside 7th Fleet. Someone's feeding them navigation data, patrol routes, classified movements. 3 near collision incidents in the last 4 months. Each time our ships were exactly where Chinese intelligence expected them to be. Someone is leaking. We need to find who. Stop them. Before a carrier group gets ambushed and 5,000 sailors die. I'm 58 years old. Broken, facing court-martial. Why would you want me? Because you understand something most officers don't. That sometimes doing what's right means accepting punishment for it. That kind of integrity is rare. Most people do what's easy, what's safe, what protects their career. You crashed your aircraft knowing you'd face tribunal. That's the kind of person I need. And if I say no, then you face your tribunal. Probably get convicted. Spend 5 years in Leavenworth. Get out at 63 with a dishonorable discharge and no pension. Live out your days wondering what might have been. And if I say yes, then I testify at your tribunal. I explain Shadow Actual. I explain that you were operating under classified authority that you didn't know about. The tribunal will still convict you because we need the appearance of accountability. But the conviction will be overturned on appeal after 6 months. You'll be reinstated with full rank and back pay, and you'll command Shadow Actual West with your son as your executive officer. Marcus looked at this woman who appeared from nowhere offering him salvation in exchange for selling his soul to an organization that didn't officially exist. What makes you think Jake would join? Because he already called us once. Because he understands the system failed his father. Because young idealistic pilots who watch corruption go unpunished either become cynics or crusaders. Your son has too much of you in him to become a cynic. You're asking me to recruit my own son into an illegal counterintelligence operation. I'm asking you to give him purpose, to channel his anger into something productive, to teach him what you've learned over 36 years, that the institution is worth saving even when the people running it aren't. Marcus closed his eyes, thought about Sarah, about what she'd say. She'd grab his face with both hands and make him look at her until he saw himself through her eyes. Then she'd say, don't be a hero, be smart. Think about what you're giving up. Think about what you're getting into. But Sarah wasn't here. And maybe sometimes being smart meant being a hero anyway. How long do I have to decide? Until your tribunal. 3 weeks. Use that time to heal, to think, to talk to your son. Then tell me. Thorne stood up, walked to the door, stopped, looked back. Colonel Kane, your wife's medical bills. The $325,000 in debt. If you join Shadow Actual, we'll clear it. Consider it a signing bonus. She left before Marcus could respond. Marcus lay in his hospital bed staring at the ceiling. $325,000. The weight that had pushed him into this mission in the first place. The debt that made him desperate enough to trust Cross. All of it erased if he signed up for more missions, more danger, more chances to die in places his son would never know about. Some deals were too good to refuse, which meant they probably weren't good deals at all. But what choice did he have? Prison or purpose? Conviction or command? The same choice he'd faced over Syria. The same calculation. How many lives could he save if he said yes versus how many would suffer if he said no? The ugly math of war applied to his own future. The weight of letters. 3 weeks passed like years. Physical therapy every morning. Learning to walk again. Learning to use his left arm again. Learning to live with pain that would probably never completely go away. The doctors said he was making remarkable progress. The nurses said he was the most determined patient they'd ever seen. Jake said he was too stubborn to heal at a normal pace. They were all probably right. Between therapy sessions, Marcus read letters, dozens of them, hundreds by the end of the second week. Tech Sergeant Owen Hayes visited first, brought Marcus the medal card. Shadow Actual. Truth Prevails, said keep it, you've earned it. Those clearances will matter when you need them. The card carries access codes that override normal chain of command. When your son needs them, he'll understand. Then left before Marcus could ask more questions. The Marines from Reaper Company sent letters. Staff Sergeant Coleman wrote 4 pages about going home to his daughter, about how she'd asked if guardian angels were real, about how Coleman said yes because he'd met one over Syria. Call sign Hog 41. My daughter's 8 years old, Colonel. She draws pictures of airplanes now. Says she wants to be a pilot when she grows up. Says she wants to save people the way you saved her daddy. I don't have words for what you gave me, but I wanted you to know that my daughter will grow up with a father because of what you did. That's more than I can ever repay. Marcus kept that letter in his wallet. Read it every night before sleep. Let it remind him why the pain was worth it. Other Marines wrote too. Lopez, Gutierrez, Park, Williams, Chen. Names he'd never met in person. Lives he'd changed from 22,000 feet without ever seeing their faces. All of them thanking him, all of them promising to tell their children about the pilot who came when everything was lost. But the letters that mattered most came from families of the 4 who didn't make it. Corporal David Reed's mother wrote 3 pages in shaking handwriting. Her son had been 24, engaged to be married, 2 months from rotating home. He died pulling wounded Marines to cover. Took an RPG blast that killed him instantly. Colonel Kane, she wrote, I don't blame you. David died doing what he loved, protecting his brothers. You gave him the chance to be a hero. You gave us the chance to bury him with honor. Thank you for trying. Thank you for saving the others. Thank you for remembering his name. Private Joel Manning's wife sent a photo with her letter. Manning in dress blues, smiling, holding his infant son, the son he would never see grow up. Joel believed in the mission, she wrote. He believed in the Marines beside him. He believed that someone would come. You came. Too late for Joel, but not too late for the friends he died protecting. I wish you hadn't been too late, but I'm grateful you came at all. Lance Corporal Miguel Torres' father was a Vietnam veteran. His letter was short, direct, military. My son served with honor. He died with his brothers. You flew into hell to save his unit. That's all any father can ask. Semper Fi, Colonel, from one old warrior to another. Private First Class Andrew Guara, Kim's brother, wrote last. Anger in every word, pain that hadn't started healing. My brother shouldn't have died. He was 19 years old. He had his whole life ahead of him. You were supposed to save them all. You were supposed to be good enough. Why weren't you faster? Why weren't you better? Why is my brother dead and you're still breathing? Marcus didn't have answers for that letter. Couldn't have answers. The young man was right to be angry. Kim was 19, just a kid, dead because Marcus had been 10 minutes too slow, because Cross had sabotaged the aircraft, because the system had failed in ways that killed children. Marcus wrote back to every family, handwritten letters, hours of work with his good hand. He told them about their sons, about the bravery he'd witnessed, about the sacrifice that saved 346 others, about his promise to never forget the 4 names. Reed, Manning, Torres, Kim. He said their names every morning when he woke up, said them every night before sleep, carved them into his memory where they would stay until the day he died. 4 ghosts, 4 debts he could never repay, 4 reasons to keep fighting even when fighting hurt. The Tribunal. On day 21, Marcus put on his dress uniform for the first time since the crash. Blues, medals, ribbons, everything he'd earned in 36 years of service. Jake helped him with the buttons because his left hand still didn't work right. Probably never would. You don't have to do this, Jake said. You can retire on medical. Honorable discharge. Keep your pension. Walk away. And live the rest of my life knowing I ran. Knowing I never faced consequences. knowing the system never had to explain itself. There's a difference between running and surviving. Not in my book, not for me. I broke the rules. I'd break them again. But I owe it to everyone who follows the rules to stand up and explain why I didn't. They drove to the Pentagon in silence. Jake at the wheel, Marcus watching Washington pass by, monuments to dead presidents, memorials to forgotten wars, the machinery of empire grinding on regardless of who got crushed beneath it. The tribunal convened in a secure conference room deep in the Pentagon's classified wing. 3 officers sat behind a raised desk. Admiral James Hawthorne in the center, 67 years old. Navy, submariner, hard man who'd spent decades underwater where mistakes killed everyone. His face gave nothing away. Vice Admiral Patricia Cortez on the left, 62 years old. Navy aviator, carrier ops. She'd lost her husband in a training accident 20 years ago. Understood sacrifice. Understood cost. Her eyes held something like compassion. Lieutenant General Raymond Shaw on the right, 65 years old, Marine infantry, 3 combat tours, more decorations than space on his uniform. The kind of officer who led from the front and buried his mistakes. His jaw was set like stone. Marcus stood before them. Jake sat in the gallery behind him. The room held maybe 20 people, all with clearances high enough to hear classified testimony. Hawthorne called the tribunal to order. Colonel Marcus Kane, you stand accused of disobeying direct orders from a superior officer, activating a weapon system specifically prohibited by operational directives, engaging hostile forces without authorization from your chain of command, and destroying military property valued at $43 million. These are serious charges that could result in dishonorable discharge and imprisonment up to 20 years. How do you plead? Marcus stood at attention, left arm still in a cast, left leg still in a brace, but back straight, eyes forward, voice clear. Guilty on all counts, sir. The room went silent. Even Hawthorne looked surprised. Most officers spent tribunals denying everything, arguing technicalities, blaming subordinates. Marcus just admitted guilt and waited for whatever came next. Cortez leaned forward. Colonel, you understand that pleading guilty removes your ability to contest these charges on appeal? Yes, ma'am. And you still plead guilty? Yes, ma'am. I did everything I'm accused of. I violated orders. I activated Sentinel. I engaged targets without authorization. I destroyed my aircraft. I'd do all of it again tomorrow. The only question is whether my actions were justified by the circumstances. I believe they were. If this tribunal disagrees, I accept the consequences. Shaw spoke for the first time. His voice carried the gravel of too many years shouting orders over gunfire. Colonel Kane, walk us through your decision-making. Start from when you arrived at Incirlik. Tell us everything. Marcus told the story. All of it. The briefing where he learned Jake was in theater. The confrontation where Jake learned his father was flying the mission. The sabotaged aircraft. Owen's warning. The conversation with Jake before takeoff. The flight. The 18 unknowns. Cross's orders to stand down. Coleman's desperate calls for help. The 3 Marines who died before Marcus could reach them. The choice. He didn't embellish, didn't justify, didn't make himself a hero, just stated facts and let them speak for themselves. When he finished, Hawthorne leaned back in his chair. So you activated Sentinel knowing it would likely cause catastrophic system failure. Knowing you'd be disobeying direct orders from a general officer. Knowing you'd face court-martial if you survived. And you did it anyway. Yes, sir. Why? Because 350 Marines were dying and I could stop it. That's the job. That's what we sign up for. To protect Americans who can't protect themselves. Even when it costs us everything. Even when the chain of command fails them. Someone has to stand in the gap. The door opened. General Thorne entered. She wore a uniform Marcus had never seen her in. Army. 4 stars on her shoulders. Combat patch from Iraq. Ranger tab. Special Forces tab. Every tab and badge you could earn in a career of dangerous service. She'd been in the shit, really in it, and climbed to the top anyway. She walked to the witness stand, was sworn in, sat down with the calm of someone who'd testified before harder audiences. Hawthorne addressed her. General Thorne, you've requested to testify on behalf of the accused. Please proceed. Thorne looked at the tribunal, then at Marcus, then back to the tribunal. Admiral Hawthorne, Vice Admiral Cortez, General Shaw. What I'm about to tell you is classified at a level above all current clearances in this room, but recent events require disclosure. I'm authorized by the Secretary of Defense to brief you into a program called Shadow Actual, she explained. The counterintelligence unit that operated outside normal channels. The corruption networks they'd been tracking for years. The 2-year investigation into Cross. The sabotaged aircraft that was designed to kill Marcus if he did his job right. The trap that Cross had set. And Colonel Kane was aware of this operation? No. Colonel Kane was bait. We used him to force Cross into action, to collect evidence, to expose the network. Colonel Kane believed he was flying a standard reconnaissance mission. He had no idea his aircraft was sabotaged, no idea Cross was under investigation, no idea Shadow Actual existed. So he wasn't operating under Shadow Actual authority when he activated Sentinel? No. He was operating under his own moral authority. He saw Marines dying. He saw his chain of command refusing to help. He made a choice. The choice was unauthorized. It was also correct, which is why we want him to join Shadow Actual, because that kind of integrity can't be taught. It's either there or it isn't. Colonel Kane has it. Cortez leaned forward. General, you're saying you deliberately put Colonel Kane in a position where he'd either die or commit career-ending violations. That's unconscionable. It's also necessary. Corruption networks hide behind procedure, behind chain of command, behind the assumption that no one will break the rules even to save lives. We needed someone who would break the rules, who would do what was right regardless of cost. Colonel Kane proved he's that person. Shaw spoke up. And the 4 Marines who died? The ones he couldn't save? Thorne's face tightened. Corporal Reed, Private Manning, Lance Corporal Torres, Private First Class Kim. I know their names, I've read their files. They died before Colonel Kane could reach them. Not because he was too slow, because Cross delayed authorization for 40 minutes while those men bled out. Their blood is on Cross's hands, not Colonel Kane's. The tribunal recessed. Marcus was led to a holding room. Jake joined him there. Dad, who is that woman? What's Shadow Actual? Something I didn't know existed until 3 weeks ago. Something I'm still not sure I want to be part of. What does she want? She wants me to hunt corruption, to lead a team that operates outside normal channels, to do the kind of work that can't be acknowledged. Jake was quiet for a moment. And you're going to say yes. It wasn't a question. Probably. Because the alternative is prison. And because someone needs to do it. And because Cross isn't the only one, there are networks all over the military. People selling out American lives for money. Someone has to stop them. Jake nodded, looked at his hands. Then I'm coming with you. No, you have a career, a future. You don't need to follow me into shadows. I'm not following you. I'm choosing it. The system failed you, Dad. Failed the Marines. Failed everyone who trusts the chain of command. If there's an organization that hunts people like Cross, I want to be part of it. I need to be. They sat in silence, waiting. The clock ticked. 30 minutes. An hour. 2. Finally, they were called back. The tribunal had reached a verdict. Hawthorne read from her prepared statement. Colonel Marcus Kane, this tribunal finds you guilty of all charges. The evidence is clear. Your own admission leaves no doubt. You violated direct orders. You activated a banned system. You engaged targets without authorization. You destroyed military property. However, this tribunal also recognizes that your actions saved 346 American lives, that the orders you violated were issued by an officer engaged in treason, that the system you activated provided evidence used to dismantle a corruption network that had been killing American forces for 3 years. We further recognize, based on General Thorne's testimony, that you were operating in circumstances beyond your knowledge or control, that you were placed in an impossible position by forces you didn't understand. Therefore, while this tribunal finds you guilty, we recommend the minimum sentence allowable by military law. Reduction in rank to lieutenant colonel. Suspension of flight status pending medical review. 6 months confinement to base, followed by mandatory retirement. This sentence will be subject to appeal and review by higher authority. But the verdict stands. You are guilty. The consequences are real. Justice has been served. Do you understand? Marcus stood at attention. Yes, sir, I understand. Do you accept this verdict? Yes, sir. Then this tribunal is adjourned. The gavel struck. Marcus's career ended officially. 36 years reduced to a guilty verdict and a recommendation for leniency. Jake helped him out of the courtroom. They walked through Pentagon corridors in silence, emerged into Washington afternoon, humid, hot, the weight of summer pressing down. Jake finally spoke. They convicted you. Yes. And you're okay with that? I'm alive. 346 Marines are alive. 4 are dead, but I didn't kill them. Cross is in prison. The network is destroyed. Yeah, I'm okay with that. They got in the car. Jake started the engine. Sat there not moving. Dad, I meant what I said. I want to join Shadow Actual. Marcus looked at his son, saw Sarah in his eyes, saw himself in his jaw, saw 32 years of choices that had led to this moment. Why? Because the system failed, because Cross spent 3 years selling out American forces and nobody stopped him until you crashed a plane. Because if there's an organization that hunts people like Cross, I want to be part of it. It's not official, not legal. You'll operate outside the chain of command, do things that can't be acknowledged, die in places no one will know about. Mom died in a hospital bed from cancer we couldn't afford to treat properly. That wasn't glorious either. But she died fighting. If I'm going to die, I'd rather die fighting corruption than sitting behind a desk pretending the system works when it doesn't. Marcus thought about Sarah, about her hands on his face, about her voice saying, be smart, not brave. But Jake was both smart and brave, and maybe that was enough. Your mother would kill me for letting you do this. Mom's not here. You are. So what do you say? Marcus reached out with his good hand, pulled Jake into a hug, held him tight. I say welcome to the unit that doesn't exist. Shadow Actual revealed. 2 days later, a black SUV collected Marcus and Jake from a hotel in Virginia, drove them through suburbs that looked like every other suburb in America, then turned onto a road that didn't appear on any map, then descended into an underground facility that officially didn't exist. Shadow Actual headquarters looked like a corporate office crossed with a military command center. Glass walls, workstations, screens showing data from around the world. 12 people working at various tasks. All of them looked up when Marcus entered. All of them stood. General Thorne waited at the center of the room. Colonel Kane, Lieutenant Kane, welcome to Shadow Actual. Let me introduce the team. She walked them through introductions. Captain Daniel Ross, 39, Financial Intelligence. He could track money through a dozen shell companies and explain exactly where every dollar went. Captain Lisa Chen, 34, Signals Intelligence. She could crack encryption that was supposed to take years to break. Captain Marcus Taylor, 41, Logistics and Supply Chain. He understood how equipment moved and how to find where it had been diverted. Captain Angela Reed, 36, Personnel and Human Intelligence. Marcus stopped at that name. Reed? Angela nodded. Her face was calm, but her eyes held something Marcus recognized. The same thing he saw in the mirror when he thought about the 4 names. My brother was Corporal David Reed. He died in that valley trying to pull wounded to cover. The reports said he was the first killed. The RPG hit before anyone could react. Marcus felt the floor shift under him. I'm sorry. I tried to get there faster. I tried. Angela held up her hand. I know. I've read the reports. Every report, every communication, every piece of evidence. My brother died because Cross delayed authorization for 40 minutes. Because the chain of command was compromised. You didn't kill him, Colonel. Cross did. And you saved the 346 who would have died next. Why are you here? Why work for the people who used my mission as bait? Because hunting corruption is how I honor David. Because every network we dismantle saves other brothers, other sisters, other families from getting the phone call my parents got. Because I refuse to let David's death mean nothing. She paused, looked at something far away. My parents got the call at 3 in the morning. Casualty notification team. 2 Marines in dress blues standing on the porch. My mother knew before they said a word. She just fell. Right there on the porch. My father caught her, held her, listened to the words that every military family dreads. We regret to inform you that your son, Angela's voice didn't break, but her eyes glistened. David was 24. He'd been promoted to corporal 3 weeks before he died. He had a fiancée, Emma. They were supposed to get married in June. She still wears the ring, still puts flowers on his grave every Sunday. I'm sorry, Marcus said. The words felt inadequate, but they were all he had. Angela nodded. I know you are, and I know you did everything you could. Owen showed me the flight recorder data, showed me the timing. David died 40 minutes before you were authorized to engage. 40 minutes of Cross refusing to give the order while my brother bled out. She met Marcus's eyes. That's why I'm here. Not for revenge, for justice. For every David in every unit who deserves commanders who won't sell them out for money. Marcus looked at this woman, 20 years younger than him, carrying the same weight, fighting the same fight, turning grief into purpose the way warriors had done for thousands of years. I remember his name, Reed. I say it every day, every morning when I wake up, every night before I sleep. Him and the other three. Angela's composure cracked, just for a moment. I know. Owen told me. That's why I wanted to meet you. To thank you for remembering. Most people forget. The names become statistics. The faces fade, but you remember. I'll never forget. None of them. Not as long as I live. They stood in silence. Two people bound by a death that connected them across rank and age and experience. Thorne gave them time, then gathered everyone for briefing. Cross was the tip of an iceberg. We've dismantled his network. 47 officers arrested, $11 million recovered. Equipment shipments traced and halted. But there are 6 more networks we've identified. Defense contractors selling substandard equipment and pocketing the difference. Foreign intelligence services with assets inside the Pentagon. Private military companies running operations that the DoD doesn't authorize. She pulled up a map of the Pacific. The most urgent threat is here. 7th Fleet, someone's feeding China real-time navigation data. 3 near-collision incidents in 4 months. Each time our ships were exactly where Chinese intelligence expected them to be. Last month, the USS Mustin came within 200 yards of a Chinese frigate. If someone hadn't blinked, we'd have had the first naval battle since World War II. Who's the suspect? We have 12 possibles, all with access, all with unexplained financial irregularities, all with opportunity. We need someone inside, someone with combat experience, someone who won't be suspected. She looked at Jake. Lieutenant Kane, you've been assigned to VFA 192, Fighting Dragons, USS Ronald Reagan, 7th Fleet. You'll be our eyes and ears. Jake straightened. When do I deploy? 3 days. But first you need training. Owen will teach you tradecraft. Lisa will teach you signals. Angela will teach you how to read people. And your father will teach you how to survive when everything goes wrong. And me? Marcus asked. What's my role? You're Shadow Actual West Commander. You'll run operations from here. Coordinate with assets in the field. Make the calls when they need to be made. You can't fly anymore, Marcus, but you can still lead. Marcus looked at the screens, at the data, at the team that had assembled to fight an invisible war. When do I start? You already have. The truth about Cross. That night, Owen Hayes visited Marcus in his temporary quarters, brought a bottle of whiskey and 2 glasses, sat down like an old friend even though they'd barely spoken. You need to know the full story. About Cross. About why he did what he did. Marcus poured 2 glasses. Waited. Vincent Cross married Sarah Cross 43 years ago. Academy sweethearts. She followed him to every posting, raised 3 kids while he climbed the ladder, loved him through 30 years of deployments in danger and never knowing if he'd come home. 8 years ago, she got sick. Breast cancer. Caught early. Should have been survivable. But there were complications. Experimental treatments. The kind insurance doesn't cover, and the VA fights tooth and nail to deny. Marcus felt something cold settle in his chest. Sarah Cross died owing $900,000, almost $1 million in medical debt. The VA denied coverage, said her cancer wasn't service-connected. Cross appealed for 18 months while she got sicker. Spent everything they had, borrowed against the house, against his pension, watched his wife die in a hospital bed begging him to stop spending money they didn't have. Owen paused, took a drink. 2 weeks after her funeral, someone approached him, offered $50,000 for information about patrol routes. Low-level stuff. Nothing that would get anyone killed. At least, that's what they told him. He took the money because he needed it, because the system had failed him, because he was angry. And it grew from there. 1 payment became 10, 10 became 100. 3 years, $11 million. Cross stopped caring about where the money came from or who got hurt. He just took it and told himself the dead would have died anyway. That war kills people, that he was just making himself whole after the system broke him. Marcus stared at his glass. He was my friend. 52 years. I saved his life over Hanoi. He stood at my wife's funeral. I know. And you need to understand something. Cross didn't start as a monster. He started as a man who watched the system kill his wife and decided the system didn't deserve his loyalty anymore. That doesn't excuse what he did, but it explains it. Why are you telling me this? Because you almost made the same choice. $325,000 in medical debt, desperate enough to take a mission you knew was wrong. The only difference between you and Cross is that when the moment came, you chose the Marines over yourself. He chose himself. Marcus drained his glass. How close did I come? Closer than you know. Cross picked you because he recognized the desperation. He thought the debt would make you compliant, make you follow orders. He didn't expect you to break every rule to save people you'd never met. And now you're on the other side, hunting people like the person Cross became. People who let desperation turn them into traitors. Marcus poured another glass. How do you keep from becoming them? You don't. Not entirely. You just choose every day to be better, to remember why you started, to say the names of the people you are fighting for. And when it gets hard, when you're tempted, you remember that every choice has consequences. Not just for you, for everyone who trusts you. Owen finished his whiskey, set down the glass. Cross made his choice one payment at a time. First 50,000, then 100, then 1,000,000. Each payment made the next one easier. Each lie made the next one smaller. Until he couldn't remember what it felt like to be honest. Until betrayal was just another part of the job. And the people who paid him, Chinese intelligence, private military contractors, defense corporations who wanted insider information. All of them using Cross as a tool, paying him just enough to keep him compromised, never enough to let him walk away. Will he testify? Give us the names of who paid him? Owen shrugged. Maybe. His lawyers are negotiating. Life in prison versus life in prison with possibility of parole. Either way, he's never getting out. But if he cooperates, maybe his children get to visit him. Maybe he dies in a minimum security facility instead of a supermax. Children. Marcus had forgotten Cross had children, 3 of them, all adults now, all serving in the military their father had betrayed. Do they know? His kids? They know. His son resigned his commission. His daughter transferred to a non-combat unit. His youngest is still deciding what to do. The sins of the father passed down to children who did nothing wrong. Marcus thought about Jake, about the weight his son carried because of choices Marcus had made. Good choices, necessary choices, but choices that still had consequences. Get some sleep, Colonel. Tomorrow your son starts training, and you start learning how to fight a war that never ends. Owen stood up, headed for the door, paused. One more thing. Your wife, Sarah. I read her file. She was remarkable. The things she did for military families, the programs she started, the people she helped. She's remembered, you know, at Nellis, at Wright-Patterson, everywhere she served. People still talk about her. Marcus felt something tighten in his chest. She was the best person I ever knew. Better than me by a mile. Every good thing in my life came from her. Then honor her by being the man she believed you were, by teaching Jake to be the man she wanted him to become. That's the best legacy any of us can leave. He left. Marcus sat alone with his whiskey and his thoughts. Outside, Virginia night settled over the invisible facility. Stars that had watched over Hanoi and Syria and 1,000 other battlefields where Americans had bled and died. Tomorrow, Jake would start learning how to be a spy, how to hunt traitors, how to survive in a world where the enemy wore the same uniform you did. And Marcus would watch from 7,000 miles away. Unable to protect, unable to intervene, only able to advise, only able to pray. Some forms of helplessness were worse than others, but at least they'd be fighting together. Father and son, 2 generations of warriors, carrying on the work that never ended. Sarah would understand. She'd hate it, but she'd understand. Because that's who they were. The Kanes, warriors who couldn't stop fighting. Pilots who couldn't stay grounded. People who chose the hard right over the easy wrong. It was genetic. Or maybe it was learned. Maybe it was both. Marcus didn't know, didn't care. All he knew was that tomorrow the war would continue, and he'd be ready. Brothers don't leave brothers, even in the shadows, especially in the shadows, where truth prevailed. USS Ronald Reagan, South China Sea. The carrier cut through Pacific swells like a city moving through water. 90,000 tons of steel and aircraft, and 5,000 sailors all pretending the ocean wasn't trying to kill them. Lieutenant Jake Kane stood on the flight deck at 0530 hours, watching F-18s launch into darkness. Catapult steam, afterburner glow. The violent ballet of men and machines performing miracles that would have seemed like witchcraft 100 years ago. 3 weeks aboard. 3 weeks of flying patrols along the edge of Chinese territorial waters. 3 weeks of watching, learning, memorizing faces, cataloging behaviors, trying to identify which of 12 senior officers was selling navigation data to Chinese intelligence. His phone buzzed. Encrypted message from Shadow Actual, from his father. Morning brief at 0600. Admiral Grant presiding. Watch his eyes when he talks about patrol routes. Traitors look away when they lie about things that matter. Trust your training. Trust your instincts. Jake typed back with one hand, the other gripping the railing against the ship's roll. Copy. Flew with Commander Harris yesterday. Asked too many questions about classified frequencies. Wanted to know which channels were encrypted and which weren't. Adding him to watch list. Good instinct. Trust it. But don't trust anyone completely. Not until we have proof. And Jake, be careful. You're not just watching them, they might be watching you. Jake pocketed the phone. Thought about his father, 58 years old and broken, sitting in an office at Shadow Actual headquarters 7,000 miles away. Watching his son hunt a traitor on a carrier full of people who could kill him without anyone ever knowing what happened. Unable to protect, unable to intervene, only able to advise. Some forms of helplessness were worse than others. The ready room at 0600 held 30 pilots in various states of consciousness. Coffee, energy drinks, the chemical alertness of people who'd been doing this too long. Jake took a seat in back, notepad ready, observing everything, recording nothing that could be found. Rear Admiral Thomas Grant entered, 62 years old, Navy aviator, 3 decades of service, friend of Vincent Cross from their academy days. They'd served together at Yokosuka in 2019. Same base, same operations. Financial irregularities in his records going back 5 years. Access to everything classified on the carrier. Top suspect on Shadow Actual's list, but suspicion wasn't proof, and Jake needed proof. Grant pulled up the operational chart. South China Sea, carrier position. Patrol sectors, exclusion zones where Chinese vessels operated. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Today's brief. We've had another near collision incident. Destroyer USS Mustin came within 200 yards of a Chinese frigate at 200 hours. Both ships were operating in international waters. Both had valid reasons to be there, but somehow they ended up in the same grid square at the same time. Grant's eyes swept the room. Tired, frustrated, but something else underneath. Something that looked like guilt, or maybe fear. Or maybe Jake was seeing things that weren't there. Maybe paranoia was contagious. Maybe hunting traitors turned everyone into suspects. This is the 4th incident in 3 months, Grant continued. Someone is leaking our navigation data, our patrol routes, our operation schedules, and it's going to get someone killed. NCIS is investigating. But until they find the leak, we all need to be vigilant. Commander Lisa Harris spoke up. 47 years old, signals officer, also on the watch list, also served at Yokosuka with Grant and Cross. Sir, have we isolated the leak? Narrowed down who has access. We're working with NCIS, but it's complicated. Dozens of people touch navigation data, encryption protocols, communication schedules. Any one of them could be compromised. We can't point fingers without evidence. Grant looked directly at Jake, held his gaze for 3 seconds too long. Lieutenant Kane, you're new aboard. Fresh eyes. If you notice anything unusual, anyone asking questions they shouldn't, anyone accessing systems outside their scope, report it immediately to me, personally, not through channels. Jake felt ice in his gut. Was that an order or a warning? Was Grant testing him or threatening him? Did Grant know why Jake was really here? Yes, sir. I'll keep my eyes open. Good. Dismissed. The pilots filed out. Jake lingered, waited until the room was empty, pulled out his phone, sent a message to his father. Grant just told me to report suspicious activity directly to him. Not through channels. That's either very smart or very guilty. Marcus's response came within 30 seconds. Guilty. Traitors want to control information flow. They isolate people who might expose them. You're on his radar now. Be careful. Don't take any risks you don't have to take. Jake left the ready room, walked the carrier's corridors, gray steel, narrow passages, 5,000 people living in a floating city where privacy didn't exist and secrets were currency. He found the communications center, showed his credentials. The tech on duty looked up briefly, then saw something in Jake's ID that made his eyebrows rise. The shadow actual clearance codes his father had given him, the ones that opened doors without questions. Just pointed to a terminal, said nothing. Jake logged in, pulled up navigation data from the last 3 near-collision incidents, looked at who accessed the files before each event, cross-referenced with personnel records, with Shadow Actual's suspect list. 3 names appeared in all 3 incidents: Admiral Grant, Commander Harris, and Lieutenant Commander David Chen, intelligence officer, 41 years old, not on the original watch list. Jake photographed the screen using the encrypted protocols Owen Hayes had taught him, sent them to Shadow Actual with a note. New possible. Chen accessed nav data before all 3 incidents. Recommend deep background check. Pattern suggests coordination rather than single actor. He logged out, erased his access record using the clearance codes embedded in his Shadow Actual card, left the communications center. Someone was watching. Jake felt it, the weight of eyes, the awareness that comes from being hunted. He turned casually, saw Commander Harris 30 feet away, pretending to read a notice board, badly. Jake walked toward her, direct, confident, the way innocent people move. Commander, morning. Harris looked up, surprised, guilty. Lieutenant Kane, what brings you to this section? Mission debrief paperwork. You know how it is. Forms in triplicate. The Navy runs on paper. She smiled. It didn't reach her eyes. Indeed. Well, carry on. She left quickly. Too quickly. Jake watched her go, waited until she turned a corner, pulled out his phone. Harris was following me. She's rattled, which means she's either guilty or she knows someone who is, possibly coordinating with Grant, possibly running scared. Marcus responded, pull back. You've pushed hard enough for today. Let her make the next move. Guilty people panic. Panicked people make mistakes. Give them room to make one. The trap. 3 days passed. Jake flew patrols, attended briefings, made small talk with other pilots, pretended to be exactly what his official record said he was, a lieutenant with good skills and no particular agenda. But he watched, always watched. Grant's behavior grew more erratic, snapping at subordinates, checking his phone constantly, taking calls in private that left him pale and sweating. Harris's behavior changed too. She avoided Jake, took different routes through the ship, stopped asking questions in briefings. Chen remained invisible, doing his job, keeping his head down, the perfect picture of someone with nothing to hide. Jake's next flight was scheduled for 1400 hours. Routine patrol, him and Lieutenant Sarah Park, 29 years old, talented pilot, trustworthy, probably. Trust was relative when everyone might be compromised. They launched at 1400, climbed to 25,000 feet, flew a standard pattern along the edge of Chinese territorial waters. Watching, being watched. The eternal dance of nations pretending they weren't preparing for war. Jake's radio crackled. Commander Harris, her voice tight, controlled, wrong. Viper 23 were picking up unusual radar contacts bearing 270. Multiple small craft, high speed, intercept and identify. Jake looked at his instruments, at his position, at the contacts Harris was describing. Something felt wrong. The location was wrong, the timing was wrong, the way Harris's voice had sounded wrong, like she was reading from a script, like she was afraid. Copy? Intercepting. Jake banked toward the contacts. Dropped to 15,000 feet, armed his camera, standard procedure for identification runs. But his gut was screaming. He keyed his mic to Shadow Actual's encrypted frequency, the one his father monitored constantly. Dad, I'm being vectored to intercept unknown contacts. Position is suspicious. Too close to Chinese territorial boundary. If this goes bad, the cavalry won't reach me in time. Marcus's voice came through immediately. Calm, steady. The voice that had talked Jake through 1,000 challenges growing up. The voice that meant safety even when nothing else did. Trust your instinct. If it feels like a trap, it probably is. Visual identification only. Do not cross the boundary. Do not give them an excuse to engage. Copy. And Jake, your mother loved you. I love you. Whatever happens, you did good work. I'm proud of you. Jake felt his throat tighten. His father only said things like that when he thought Jake might not come home. Love you too, Dad. See you soon. He hoped it was true. The radar contacts resolved. 6 Chinese patrol boats. Fast attack craft, armed with missiles and guns. They were inside international waters, technically legal, but positioned perfectly to draw American aircraft toward the territorial boundary. A trap, exactly as Jake suspected. If he flew close enough for visual identification, he'd be within missile range. If a confrontation started, he'd be blamed for starting it. If he crossed the line even by accident, the Chinese would have footage of an American fighter violating their airspace. And if something happened to him, it would look like an accident. A tragic misunderstanding, not murder. He keyed his radio to Harris. Viper 23, contacts identified as Chinese patrol boats. 6 vessels. Armed. Position is provocative but legal, maintaining surveillance from standoff range. Harris responded immediately. Negative. Close for detailed identification. Visual confirmation required. Ma'am, that will put me within missile range. Request clarification of engagement authority. You have authority to defend yourself. Close and identify. Jake looked at his navigation display. At the line marking Chinese territorial waters. At the patrol boats positioned to force him across that line if he got close enough. And he understood. Harris was trying to get him killed or captured, either way eliminated. Because he'd gotten too close. Because she knew he was investigating. Because she was the traitor. Or Grant was, and Harris was following his orders. Either way, Jake was the bait in a trap designed to start an international incident that would bury Shadow Actual's investigation forever. Jake made his choice. The same choice his father had made over Syria. Break the rules or let bad people win. He broke. Viper 23 declaring emergency. Electrical failure. Returning to carrier. He turned away from the patrol boats, headed back toward the Reagan. His systems were fine. No electrical failure. Just a pilot lying to save his life. Be smart. Not brave. His mother's words. His father's lesson. Applied when it mattered. Harris's voice came through sharp, angry. Viper 23, cancel emergency. Your systems show green. Return to investigation. Negative. I'm showing faults that aren't transmitting. Returning to carrier for inspection. Lieutenant Kane, you are ordered to complete your mission. And Jake keyed a different frequency. Open channel. Every American asset in theater could hear him. All units, Viper 23. I'm being ordered to fly into a potential engagement scenario without proper authorization or backup. Declaring emergency and returning to base. Request immediate investigation of command structure. Silence on the radio, then chaos. 15 voices asking questions, demanding clarification. The whole theater suddenly aware that something was wrong. Jake flew back to the Reagan, trapped the wire, shut down his aircraft, climbed out to find 6 Marines waiting, armed, serious. Lieutenant Kane, you're confined to quarters pending investigation. Your weapons, your credentials. Now. Jake handed them over, allowed himself to be escorted below deck, to a small cabin with a lock that only opened from outside. A brig. They'd arrested him. His phone buzzed. Message from his father. I heard. You did the right thing. Shadow Actual is moving. Stay safe. Help is coming. Jake sat on the bunk, alone, locked up, waiting for either rescue or a knife in the dark. He'd exposed the traitor. But he might not live long enough to prove it. The Reckoning. 7,000 miles away, Marcus watched the satellite feed from the Reagan. Watched Jake's icon move from flight deck to below deck. Stop. Remain still. Confined. His son was arrested, exposed, vulnerable. Marcus grabbed his phone, called Thorne. Jake's compromised. We need to extract. Now. Extraction team is 30 minutes out. Helicopter from USS Mustin. But Marcus, there's a complication. What complication? Admiral Grant just sent orders to transfer Lieutenant Kane to Chinese custody. Claims he violated airspace. Created an international incident. Needs to face tribunal in Beijing. That's insane. Jake never crossed the boundary. We have the flight recorder data. We have everything. Doesn't matter. Grant has authority. Unless we can prove he's the traitor in the next 20 minutes, Jake gets handed over. And once he's in Chinese custody, we'll never get him back. Marcus stood up, mind racing, 20 minutes to find proof, to save his son, to stop a traitor who'd been hiding for years. He looked at the team. Daniel Ross, Lisa Chen, Marcus Taylor, Angela Reed, the core of Shadow Actual. The people who hunted corruption in the dark. We have 20 minutes. What do we have on Grant? Daniel pulled up financial records, offshore accounts, cryptocurrency transfers, $43 million over 5 years. But it's hidden behind his shell companies in Cyprus and the Caymans. We can't prove it's him. without breaking encryption that will take weeks. Lisa Chen spoke up. Commander Harris, if she's working with Grant, her communications won't be as secure. She's lower rank, less paranoid, less protected. If we crack her records, we might find messages linking her to Grant, proof they're working together. How long? Give me 15 minutes. Do it. Lisa's fingers flew across keyboards, screens filled with code, encryption algorithms, brute force attacks that would get her arrested if anyone knew she was running them. Marcus watched the clock, watched Jake's icon, watched his son sit in a cell waiting for either salvation or betrayal. 14 minutes. Angela Reed pulled up personnel files. Marcus, look at this. Harris and Grant both served together in Yokosuka in 2019. Same bases cross. 3 of them had overlapping duty stations for 18 months. They've known each other for years. They went through Cross's training program together. Connection but not proof. Keep digging. 12 minutes. Marcus paced, felt helpless, felt old, felt every mile between him and his son. 10 minutes. Lisa Chen leaned back from her screen. I'm in. Harris's communications. Decrypted. Pulling messages now. The screen filled with text, hundreds of messages, years of conversation, most of it routine, professional, boring. Then one message, sent 3 hours ago, from Harris to an encrypted number. Kane is investigating. He accessed nav data, linked all 3 incidents. Grant wants him eliminated. Approved? Response came 30 seconds later. Approved. Make it look like he violated Chinese airspace. Transfer to their custody. Problem solved. Payment transferred as agreed. Marcus's hands balled into fists. That's our proof. Harris is the middleman. She takes orders from Grant. Grant takes money from China. They're both guilty. Lisa copied the messages, encrypted them, sent them to Thorne with authentication codes that proved they were genuine. Done. Evidence delivered. NCIS is moving. Marcus grabbed his phone, called Jake. Jake answered on the first ring. Dad, they're going to transfer me to Chinese custody. I heard the Marines talking. 15 minutes. Not happening. Shadow Actual has proof. Grant and Harris are both traitors. NCIS is arresting them now. You're being released. How did you get proof that fast? Lisa Chen is terrifyingly good at her job. And your instinct was right. Harris tried to get you killed. Grant approved it. They're both going down. Jake was silent for a moment. When he spoke, his voice was rough. Thanks, Dad, for not pulling me out, for trusting me to finish it. You earned the trust. Now get ready. The next few hours are going to be chaos. Dawn on the carrier. The arrest happened at 0200 hours. NCIS agents arrived via helicopter from the Mustin. 20 armed personnel. Warrants for Rear Admiral Thomas Grant and Commander Lisa Harris. Both charged with treason, conspiracy, and attempted murder of a federal officer. Grant was in his quarters when they came. Didn't resist. Just asked one question. How did you know? Your friend Cross taught us what to look for. Financial patterns, communication anomalies. And you made one mistake he never did. You tried to kill someone from Shadow Actual. We protect our own. Grant was led away in handcuffs, through corridors filled with sailors who trusted him, who'd followed his orders, who'd believed he was leading them honorably. Some betrayals were worse than others. Harris tried to run, made it 3 corridors before Marines tackled her. She screamed, fought, promised to expose secrets if they didn't let her go, said she had names, said she had evidence. No one let her go. Jake was released from confinement, given his credentials back, his weapons, his dignity. He walked to the flight deck as dawn broke over the South China Sea, found a quiet corner, pulled out his phone, called his father. It's over. They're in custody. I'm okay. Marcus's voice came through rough, like he'd been crying, or trying not to. You did good work, son. Your mother would be so proud. Couldn't have done it without you. You kept me smart when I wanted to be brave. That's what fathers are for, also for embarrassing you at your wedding someday. I'm looking forward to that. Jake laughed. It felt good, normal, real. Yeah, well, first I need to find someone willing to marry into this insane family. Good luck with that. We're a lot to handle. They sat on the phone in comfortable silence. Father and son, 7,000 miles apart, connected by something deeper than distance. Finally, Marcus spoke. Jake, come home. Shadow Actual has other missions, other threats, but they can wait. Come home for a week. Let's go fishing, like we promised your mother. I'd like that. Give me 3 days to process paperwork. Then I'm on the first flight stateside. I'll be waiting. They ended the call. Jake stood on the flight deck watching the sunrise over water, thinking about his mother, his father, the path that had led him here. Thinking about the 4 Marines who died before his father could save them. Reed, Manning, Torres, Kim. Their names were carved on his memory now, permanent, unshakable. He thought about Angela Reed, working at Shadow Actual, hunting the people who'd killed her brother, turning grief into purpose, pain into mission. Some losses never healed, but they could transform into something useful, something that protected others from the same loss. Jake pulled out the metal card his father had given him. Shadow Actual, truth prevails. He was part of something now, something dangerous, something necessary, something that operated in darkness so others could live in light. His mother would hate it, his father accepted it, and Jake understood it was exactly where he was supposed to be. 3 weeks later, Virginia. Marcus stood at the edge of a lake in Virginia countryside. Early morning, mist rising off water, 2 fishing rods, a cooler with beer and sandwiches. Everything his wife had made him promise to do with their son. He'd promised her, in the hospital room, 3 weeks before she died. Promise me you'll take Jake fishing. Promise me you will talk to him. Promise me you won't let grief turn you both into strangers. Marcus had promised, had waited 3 years to keep it, but he was keeping it now. Jake arrived in a rental car, civilian clothes, no uniform, just a young man visiting his father. Nothing classified, nothing dangerous, just family. They fished for 3 hours. Didn't catch anything. Didn't matter. They talked about everything except Shadow Actual, except missions, except the weight they both carried. They talked about Sarah, about memories, about the time she'd accidentally backed their car through the garage door, about the time she'd gotten food poisoning and blamed Marcus's cooking for a decade afterward, about the way she'd smiled when Jake graduated from the academy. They talked about what normal life looked like, about how strange it felt to sit still, about how hard it was to turn off the part of your brain that was always watching, always calculating, always preparing for threats that might never come. Finally, as afternoon shadows lengthened, Jake spoke. Dad, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest. Marcus set down his rod. Ask. Do you regret it? Activating Sentinel. Crashing the plane. Everything that came after. Do you regret it? Marcus thought about that, about the broken bones that still ached when it rained, about the career that ended in a guilty verdict, about the tribunal, about the path that led to Shadow Actual, about the 346 Marines who went home, about the 4 who didn't. No, I don't regret it. I regret that I couldn't save all of them. I regret that doing what was right cost so much, but I don't regret the choice, because some things matter more than cost. Even if it kills you, especially if it kills me, because that means I went out doing something that mattered. Your mother understood that. She hated it, but she understood it. Jake nodded, quiet. I think I understand it now too. On the Reagan, when Harris tried to get me killed, when I had to choose between following orders and staying alive. I thought about what you'd taught me, about doing what's right even when it's hard. And I'm glad I'm your son, glad I learned from you, glad I'm part of something that matters. Marcus felt something break in his chest. The last wall, the final barrier between the father who wanted to protect and the commander who needed to prepare. Your mother would say, I've made you too much like me, too willing to sacrifice, too ready to pay costs that might break you. Jake smiled, Sarah's smile. Then it's a good thing she's not here to stop us. They fished until sunset, still didn't catch anything. Packed up the gear, drove back to Marcus's temporary quarters in silence. At the door, Jake turned. I got orders. Shadow Actual West, Pacific Operations, permanent assignment. I'll be working for you officially now. Marcus nodded, expected, inevitable. You ready for that? No, but I'm ready to try. Good, because we've got work to do. China's intelligence networks go deeper than Grant and Harris. We've identified 6 more possibles. Naval officers, defense contractors, CIA, all of them potentially compromised. Jake's face hardened. Professional. When do we start? Tomorrow, but tonight we drink to your mother, and to the Marines we saved, and to the ones we couldn't. They went inside, found the whiskey Sarah had hidden for special occasions, poured 2 glasses, raised them toward a photo on Marcus's desk. Sarah, smiling, forever 53, forever alive in memory. To Mom, Jake said, for raising us right even when we made it hard. To Sarah, Marcus echoed, for loving us despite everything. They drank, sat in comfortable silence. Father and son, warriors, brothers in the shadow war that never ended. Fort Leavenworth, Kansas. Marcus stood in the visitor room of a military prison. Gray walls, metal table, chairs bolted to the floor, security cameras recording everything. The door opened. Guards brought Vincent Cross in. Orange jumpsuit, shackles, 70 years old and broken, awaiting trial for treason, facing life imprisonment or execution depending on how the court-martial went. They sat facing each other. Two old pilots, brothers once, enemies now. Cross spoke first. His voice was hoarse, tired. "Thanks for coming. Wasn't sure you would. Wasn't sure I should. But we've known each other 52 years. That earns one conversation. 52 years, since Hanoi. Since you saved my life. I've thought about that a lot. About how you risked everything to catch my aircraft. About how I've repaid that by betraying everything you believe in." Marcus said nothing, just waited. Cross looked at his hands, shackled, helpless. Sarah died owing $900,000. The VA denied coverage, said her cancer wasn't service-connected. I appealed for 18 months while she got sicker, spent everything, borrowed more, and she died anyway, begging me to stop spending money we didn't have. 2 weeks after her funeral, someone offered me $50,000 for information about patrol routes. Low-level stuff, nothing sensitive. I took it because I needed the money, because the system had failed me, because I was angry. One payment became 10, 10 became 100. And somewhere along the way, I stopped being a man who'd been wronged and became a man who was wrong. But I couldn't stop. The money was too good. The anger was too deep. And I'd already crossed too many lines to turn back. Marcus listened, felt no sympathy, only sadness for what his friend had become. "You killed 4 Marines in that valley, maybe more in other operations. How many, Vince? How many Americans died because you sold them out?" Cross's face crumpled. "I don't know. Dozens? Maybe hundreds over 3 years. I didn't count. Didn't want to know. Just took the money and told myself they would have died anyway. That war kills people regardless. That I was just making myself whole after the system broke me. But you knew it was wrong. Every time you took money, every time you fed intelligence to people who wanted to kill Americans, you knew." "Yes, I knew. And I did it anyway. And the worst part, Marcus, the worst part is that I'd probably do it again. Because once you start, once you see how easy it is, once the money starts coming, you can't imagine going back to being the person who had nothing." Marcus stood up. "I came here because we've known each other 52 years. Because you were my friend. Because I wanted to understand how someone I saved over Hanoi became someone who'd kill Marines for profit. And now I understand. You made a choice. Every day, for 3 years, you chose money over honor. Chose yourself over the people who trusted you. Chose to become exactly what you became. I'm sorry, Marcus, for what that's worth. I'm sorry I put you in that position. Sorry I tried to get you killed. Sorry I betrayed everything we believed in." Marcus walked to the door, knocked for the guard, looked back at Cross one last time. "Your apology isn't worth anything, but your trial might be. Every officer you worked with, every operation you compromised, every dollar you took, it's all going to be public record. And maybe some other corrupt officer will see what happens to traitors and decide the money isn't worth it. That's the only value your life has left. Being an example of what not to become." The door opened. Marcus walked out. Didn't look back. Behind him, Vincent Cross sat alone in a gray room, waiting for a trial that would end with conviction, with life imprisonment, with becoming the cautionary tale Marcus described. Some friendships died in fire. Some in betrayal. Some in a military prison where the man you'd saved 52 years ago looked at you with contempt and walked away. Legacy. Marcus drove back to Virginia, back to Shadow Actual, back to his son and the work that never ended. Back to hunting the corruption that killed Americans who trusted their leadership. The road was long. The night was dark. Marcus drove with the window down, letting cold air keep him awake, thinking about everything that had led to this moment, thinking about Sarah, about Jake, about the 4 names he'd never forget. Reed, Manning, Torres, Kim. He said their names out loud. Let them hang in the air. A prayer, a promise, a reminder of what he was fighting for. His phone buzzed. Message from Thorne. "Cross trial begins next month. Your testimony required. He wants to see you before trial. Says he owes you an explanation. Your call whether you go. Marcus typed back, already went. Said everything that needed saying. Good. Get some rest. Tomorrow we start planning the next operation. China networks in Hawaii. Pentagon suspects. Private contractors with government access. The list grows. Marcus put the phone away. Kept driving. Somewhere ahead, Shadow Actual headquarters waited. Screens showing threats around the world. Teams planning operations that would never be acknowledged. A war without end against enemies who wore the same uniform. And Jake, his son, learning to be a warrior in shadows, carrying on the work. Marcus thought about legacy, about what he'd leave behind when his time came. A son who would carry on the work. Marines who'd live to see their families. A corruption network destroyed. And a name that meant something. Ironside, the man who never left anyone behind. He pulled into the parking garage, descended to the underground facility, found Jake waiting at the door. How was it? Jake asked, seeing Cross. Hard, but necessary. Did you get what you needed? I got understanding, which is different from what I needed. What I needed was my friend back. And that's never going to happen. Jake nodded, didn't push. They walked inside together. Found the team assembled for evening briefing. 6 more networks to hunt. 6 more chances to save lives. 6 more battles in a war that never ended. Thorne stood at the center of the room. Gentlemen, we have work to do. The briefing began. Maps, names, financial trails, all the weapons of modern war that had nothing to do with guns and everything to do with information. Marcus listened, contributed, led, did the job he'd been trained to do for 36 years. But part of him was still in that prison room, still looking at the man who'd been his brother, still wondering how close he'd come to making the same choice. $325,000. That's what Sarah's medical debt had been. Less than half what Cross's wife had owed, less than half the desperation. But the same kind of pressure, the same broken system, the same moment of weakness that could have turned him into exactly what Cross became. The only difference was the choice. Marcus had chosen the Marines, Cross had chosen himself. And that choice made all the difference in the world. The end. After the briefing, Marcus sat alone in his office. Jake had gone to quarters. The team had dispersed. The facility was quiet. He pulled out Sarah's photo, the one from Jake's commissioning ceremony, the last time they'd all been happy together. I'm still fighting, he told her. Still trying to do what's right. Still making mistakes. But I'm trying. The photo didn't answer, but Marcus heard her voice anyway, in memory, in the part of him that would always be hers. That's all anyone can do. Try. Fight. Love the people who matter. Accept the losses. Keep going. He put the photo down. Looked at the screens, at the data, at the war that never ended. Tomorrow there would be new threats, new traitors, new chances to fail and new opportunities to succeed. But tonight there was peace. For a moment, for a breath, Marcus closed his eyes, thought about the lake, about fishing with his son, about the promise he'd finally kept. Some legacies were measured in victories, some in defeats, some in the names of the people you'd saved and the names of the people you'd lost. Marcus Kane's legacy was 346 Marines who went home, 4 who didn't, a son who would carry on the work, and a code that defined everything. Brothers don't leave brothers, never had, never would, even in the shadows, especially in the shadows, where truth prevailed. He opened his eyes, looked at the screens one more time, at the data that represented lives, threats, opportunities to fail and chances to succeed. Tomorrow there would be new battles, new traitors to hunt, new prices to pay. But he was ready. He'd been ready for 52 years, since Hanoi, since the moment he'd decided that saving one person was worth risking everything. That principle hadn't changed. The enemy had, the methods had, but the core remained. Protect the people who can't protect themselves. Accept the consequences. Keep going. Marcus stood up, walked to the door, paused. On the wall hung a small frame. Inside it, a metal card. The first Shadow Actual card he'd ever received. The one Owen Hayes had given him in that hotel room at Creech. The one that had started everything. Shadow Actual. Truth prevails. Next to it hung another frame. Smaller. Inside it, a folded piece of paper. Coleman's letter. The one about his daughter drawing pictures of airplanes. The one that reminded Marcus why the pain was worth it. And next to that, 4 names, handwritten. Marcus's own writing. Corporal David Reed. Private Joel Manning. Lance Corporal Miguel Torres, Private First Class Andrew Kim. 4 names he said every morning. 4 names he'd say until the day he died. 4 debts he could never repay. But he could try. He could spend every remaining day hunting the people who got soldiers killed for profit. He could train his son to carry on that work. He could build a legacy that honored the fallen by protecting the living. That was all anyone could do. Try, fight, remember. Marcus turned off the light, left the office, walked through the silent facility to his quarters. Jake was already asleep in the next room. 26 hours of travel catching up to him. Young men could push through exhaustion, but eventually the body demanded rest. Marcus checked on him, stood in the doorway for a moment, watched his son sleep. 32 years old, fighter pilot, shadow actual operative, the next generation of warriors. Sarah would be so proud and so terrified and so resigned because this was who they were, the Kane family. Warriors who couldn't stop fighting, pilots who couldn't stay grounded, people who chose the hard right over the easy wrong. It was genetic, or maybe it was learned, maybe it was both. Marcus didn't know, didn't care. All he knew was that his son would carry on the work, would protect Americans who couldn't protect themselves, would say the names of the fallen and honor them through action. That was legacy. That was purpose. That was enough. Marcus went to his own room, lay down on the bed, closed his eyes. Tomorrow the war would continue. The networks would scheme. The traitors would sell secrets. The good would fight the corrupt in shadows no one acknowledged. But tonight there was peace. For a moment, for a breath. And in that peace, Marcus heard Sarah's voice one more time. You did good, Marcus. You brought them home. Not all of them, he answered. No, not all, but enough. It had to be enough because that was all he had, all anyone had. The willingness to try, the strength to fight, the courage to accept the cost, and the faith that somehow in the end, truth would prevail. Marcus Kane, 58 years old, broken but not beaten, father, warrior, leader. Ironside, the man who never left anyone behind. He slept, and for the first time in months, his dreams were peaceful.